Bill Wilson brought his recruits to his and Lois's home on Clinton Street in Brooklyn and met there with his group every Tuesday evening. The group also attended Wednesday evening meetings of the Oxford group at Calvary Church, where friction ultimately began to develop between the alcoholics and the more conservative, non-alcoholic group members. In Ohio, a related problem caused a split of another kind. One of the Cleveland members of the Akron group, Clarence Snyder, began to realize that as long as the self-help group was tied to the Oxford group, it could never hope to assimilate Catholics, Jews, or agnostics.
The majority of the fellows that were going down to the Oxford group with me were Catholics. A Catholic in those days, they were not permitted by their church to belong to such a group as the Oxford movement. So something had to be done. I said, all we need is a 12-step program, the 4 absolutes, and anyone can live with that. So I went down to Akron the next week and made the announcement that this is the last time the Cleveland contingent will be down here as a group. We are starting our own group in Cleveland, Ohio at 2345 Stillman Road, Cleveland Heights. And this is not going to be an Oxford group. This is going to be known as Alcoholics Anonymous. We're taking the name from the book, and only alcoholics and their families are welcome.
In 1939, the Big Book project of Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob was at last finished. Its title would become the name of the organization. The humble preface to this first edition reads, "We of Alcoholics Anonymous
are more than 100 men and women who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body to show other alcoholics precisely how we have recovered is our main purpose."
The Big Book includes the first general publication of AA's now famous 12 Steps to Recovery, beginning with the long-established steps of admitting that one's life has become unmanageable due to alcohol and turning over one's will to a power greater than oneself, but now also including a promise to make restitution where possible to those one has injured. These 12 steps were supplemented in 1950 by the organization's 12 Traditions. Costs of publishing Alcoholics Anonymous were partly underwritten by philanthropist John D. Rockefeller, Jr., whose strong recommendation that AA must be self-supporting became one of its stated traditions.
There are no fees or dues whatsoever. The only requirement for membership is an honest desire to stop drinking.
Tradition 7 of Alcoholics Anonymous, says, every group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. The first part of Tradition 7 makes it clear that responsibility extends to the members of each local group as it passes the basket for contributions to pay the rent and maintain its literature library. If the group collects more than is necessary to meet its expenses, the group can contribute to its World Service Office, which also follows this tradition by accepting no outside contributions. Rejecting outside contributions. The second part of this tradition addresses the issue of the fellowship not becoming involved with outside issues or conflicts that could arise by accepting outside contributions.
Attraction, not promotion, which is the principle of our fellowship's public relations.
The effects of the book were immediate and gratifying. Beginning with a series of articles in the Cleveland Plain Dealer, national recognition soon came to AA in such magazines as Liberty and the Saturday Evening Post.
Anybody that preaches to somebody to try to promote them, to convince them, to persuade them into our way of life.
In cities across the nation, membership increased tenfold in 5 years.
Tradition 12, Principles before Personalities.
Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities.
It is important that we maintain anonymous. When writing or speaking publicly about alcoholism, we urge each of our fellowship to omit his personal name, designating himself instead as a member of Alcoholics Anonymous. Very earnestly, we ask the press also to observe this request, for otherwise we shall be greatly handicapped. We are not an organization in the conventional sense of the word.
Growth of the organization was further stimulated by sports figures like Raleigh Hemsley and others who publicly expressed their gratitude for their recovery through AA.